And an important question, could you fall victim to a sophisticated bank scam that begins with a simple text message? The government says scams of all kinds are soaring. Americans reported losing nearly $8.8 billion to fraud last year. That's up 30% from the year before.
The text arrives like any other security alert. Simple, routine. Did you approve this charge? Deborah replies, she's careful. She always is. Within 7 days, $160,000 vanishes. But here's what no one expected. The texts were real, sent by the actual bank. And still, everything disappeared. What she didn't know was that someone else was listening. If you found this story, like, share, and subscribe to the Scam Anatomy. What you're about to see changes how you think about safety. Deborah Moss spent over a decade building her small catering business in California. Weekend shifts, late nights prepping orders. Every dollar counted because it wasn't just money, it was a future. She'd saved enough to pursue a peaceful life in rural Guerneville, away from the noise, somewhere she could finally breathe. The kind of place where you trust your neighbors, where things feel simpler. She wasn't reckless, she wasn't naive, she was just living her life. Across the country, Russell Leahy, a 28-year-old Texas schoolteacher, had done the same. Saved $32,000 by staying home on weekends, skipping vacations. He'd just gotten married. The money was for starting a family. And in Florida, Tom and Ann Hill, retirees in their 70s, had $42,000 in savings. Fixed income, careful planning, years of being responsible. None of them thought they'd become victims. Because victims always look like someone else, don't they? For Deborah, it started with a question. A text message from Chase Bank asked about a $35 debit card charge from another state. Small. Almost forgettable. Was this you? She dismissed it as a minor inconvenience and replied, "Of course she did. That's what you're supposed to do, right? Respond, confirm, protect your account." For Russell, the call came from what appeared to be Chase. They told him his account had been compromised and he needed to move his money to protect it. For the Hills, it was a text on the 18th of January 2024. Anne didn't respond to the message. She did what everyone says to do. She called the number on the back of her debit card. Smart move, responsible move. It didn't matter. Minutes after Deborah replied, her phone rang. The caller ID showed Chase Bank. On the line was someone who introduced herself as Miss Barbara from Chase ATM. Miss Barbara was polite, professional. She knew things. She said there'd been fraud. She needed to issue a new card. Simple process. But first, identity verification. Miss Barbara told Deborah she'd receive a text with numbers, and she just needed to read them back. Deborah's phone buzzed. The message was real. It had Chase's name. Official formatting. Two-factor authentication. She read the numbers aloud. "Thank you, Miss Moss." Everything felt secure. Russell received similar texts. Banking information that looked completely official. The scammers weren't just calling. They were layering legitimacy into every interaction. For the Hills, something stranger happened. Minutes after Anne called the real Chase Bank, a scammer called her back. How? Because the scammer had already intercepted the moment. They were waiting. Days passed for Deborah. Miss Barbara called again. FedEx was having trouble finding her home, she said. It made sense Deborah had just moved. Barbara sent another text. Deborah verified more numbers. Then, another call, another issue, another text. Each time, the same calm voice. The same reassurance. But something about the repetition felt off. Not alarming. Just slightly wrong. Like a door left open when you thought you'd closed it. She didn't panic. Not yet. Russell felt the urgency differently. "I couldn't even believe how sophisticated it was," he would later say. Because sophistication doesn't always announce itself with flashing red lights. Sometimes it just sounds professional. For the Hills, the timeline was brutal. Anne flagged her account for fraud at 2:31 p. The first wire transfer attempt was denied at 2:53 p. But less than an hour later, a second $22,000 wire went through at 3:39 p.m. They were actively trying to stop it, and it happened anyway. Deborah grew suspicious. She drove 30 miles from her rural home to the nearest Chase branch. At the counter, the representative pulled up her account. Silence. Then the words, "There's no money in your account. In fact, you've wired out $160,000, and you owe us $895.
Looks up at me and says, "Oh no, Deborah, this has been a very active card. As a matter of fact, all the money that you had in there is gone, and you actually owe Chase $895. That's how I was told."
I didn't even know what a wire transfer was, Deborah told CBS. In just 1 week, scammers had conducted 6 wire transfers from her account, some as high as nearly $48,000. The texts she'd received were real, sent by Chase Bank as part of its two-factor authentication system. But the scammers had tricked her into reading those security codes over the phone, which allowed them to bypass every protection. The system designed to keep her safe had become the weapon. Russell described the moment he realized, "I'd never really felt like I was going to pass out before, but it really felt like the end of the world for me."
It really felt like it was the end of the world for me.
He'd just gotten married, he'd saved for years. Now, they were living paycheck to paycheck. Tom Hill said it simply, "They ended up taking $42,000 total out of our banking account. My world fell apart. My whole world fell apart," Deborah said. You think of your bank as being someplace that you put your money so that it's safe, but it's not safe. What made these scams work wasn't hacking. It was something far simpler and far more chilling. Scammers replicated official phone numbers, recited account details, and even pretended to be agents from the FBI. The incoming calls to the Hills appeared as real Chase numbers, a level of spoofing that led them to believe they were speaking to the bank directly. The couple says they never gave any personal information to the scammer. They didn't need to. When police obtained recordings of the wire transfer requests, Tom and Ann immediately recognized the voice wasn't theirs. A fraud detective reviewed the audio and confirmed, you could tell clearly that it was not the same person. Besides the voice itself, but the attitude, the way what she's asking for, the urgency. Chase told the Hills their claim was denied because the wire transfers were authorized using a one-time passcode sent to a phone number ending in 8,157. But neither of their numbers ended in those digits. The fraud detective reviewing the case wrote, "It is my professional opinion that after hearing the voices of the real and fake Ann Hill, there is no way that JPM Chase should have authorized the 2 wire transfers." The FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center reported over 191,000 phishing and spoofing complaints in 2025. The FBI warned about banking spoof calls where scammers pose as bank or law enforcement officials designed to trick victims into providing sensitive information. According to FBI Special Agent Robert Richardson, scammers use psychological pressure tactics. Once victims feel they are in trouble, they are more likely to comply without questioning. The fear doesn't need to be loud, it just needs to be constant. Deborah filed a police report and submitted a claim to Chase Bank. After a 5-week wait, the bank denied her claim. Chase wrote, "During our review, we found you did not take the appropriate steps to protect your account from theft or unauthorized use." Russell received $2,000 back, but was told he wasn't covered as this was a scam, not fraud. Tom and Ann Hill fought for nearly 2 years. The bank officially denied their claim and closed the case. After media exposure, Chase eventually offered reimbursement, but initially said it could not return the money because it had already been cashed out. David Weber, a certified fraud examiner and forensic accounting professor, believes Chase bore responsibility. Any way you look at it, they failed. They failed her. The bank could have required her to come in and sign the wire form in person. They left everything for her to be at risk, and now they're saying they bear no responsibility. Weber also noted, the two-factor authentication is not strong enough to protect this customer. This is happening hundreds and thousands of times a day in the United States using the exact same methods. In multiple cases reviewed by CBS News, Chase said it would not reimburse money because it had determined transactions were authorized, despite victims reporting to law enforcement they were conned. What stayed with Deborah wasn't just the money, it was the voice. Miss Barbara, calm, patient, reassuring. The voice that sounded like help. Russell wanted others to know. "I'd rather be the sacrificial lamb if it means others won't go through what I did," he said. Tom and Ann spent 2 years fighting to be believed. "Why would we be fighting for 2 years if we did this?" Ann said. "This wiped out our savings. The pattern is everywhere now. Not just with Chase, any bank, any institution. The Federal Trade Commission warns, if someone tells you to move your money to protect it, it's a scam. Never transfer or send money to someone you don't know in response to an unexpected call or message." Chase stated, "We urge all consumers to ignore phone, text, or internet requests to move money or gain access to their computer or bank accounts. Banks and legitimate companies won't make these requests, but scammers will. But awareness isn't always enough, because the scam doesn't target what you know. It targets the moment when fear overrides everything else. The moment when a calm voice tells you exactly what to do. And you listen. Deborah never got her money back. Neither did Russell, not fully. The Hills had to fight for years before media pressure changed the outcome. The scammers? Still out there. New numbers, new voices, same script. Because the real breakthrough wasn't technology, it was psychological. They learned that trust doesn't require proof. It just requires familiarity. A voice that sounds right. A text that looks real. A moment when doubt feels more dangerous than compliance. And in that moment, everything can disappear. This is the scam anatomy. If this opened your eyes, share it with someone who needs to see this. Subscribe for more investigations that reveal what's hidden. Because the best defense isn't just knowing the warning signs. It's understanding the moment before you realize something's wrong.